Alright you guys, it's Michael here. Welcome to the 420cc Predator powered articulated mini dump truck. On the last video we got it up and running and steering, got to take it for a few little test rides, and it was awesome to see it moving. But in this video we're going to work on a few creature comforts here. The last video I thought I had these pedals arranged where I thought I would like them, and I was going to do a floorboard over the transmission. Realized it's uncomfortable, so we're going to rearrange these, lower them down, and I'm going to do little drop downs, have the transmission in the center exposed, kind of like on a small tractor. And I'm going to do little footwells with some type of aluminum plating here. And then we're going to move on to a few other things, mount the battery lower in the frame so it's a little more permanently attached. We're probably going to be working on a jack shaft to change the gear ratio. It's 4-to-1 right now. I want to do 6 or 8-to-1, really get a super low first gear. Be able to use the whole gearbox. Right now I was only able to use first and second, third on flat. So we're going to do that, and we're going to move on. Hopefully we can get to a bench seat, something that makes us a little more comfortable. So stick around, check out the video, guys. Well, just got another little tank of 75-25 argon CO2 blend. Typical of my gas supplier, Central Gas, kind of burn you every time. It's got 1500 psi in that tank. Should be closer to 2000. I mean, that's a quarter of a tank difference there. Wish I had a better gas supplier. Alright, we got the brake pedal mounted exactly how I want it. I'm happy with that location. Got the gas pedal modified from the old Subaru one. That's good. Floorboards, now we're onto the shifter. The original Subaru configuration actually mounted it back behind the transmission. That's not going to work for us because we're going to have a bench seat right here. So we're actually going to take it around, flip it like this, shorten this stuff up, modify it quite a bit. I'm going to cut out some parts in Fusion 360 on the plasma table, and we're going to make a little mount that sits right up on top of the transmission here. Hopefully retain the same kind of shift pattern, it's not backwards or anything, and we're going to get cutting and modifying here. Well, alright, got my welder fired up here, and as you see there's some mud on the tire, so I got to cruise this thing around my property today. It worked really well, so I'm going to go through and weld out solid, and we'll get welding here. Alright, so next we're going to lay a sheet of steel on here and start cutting out some parts and pieces for the jack shaft mounting plate and cut all those parts so we can lower the gear ratio for the articulating dump truck. Oh, if you guys haven't noticed yet, I got the Pro model just recently. Been happy about it, been excited that they were going to come out with this. And don't worry, the original Crossfire I've been using for these videos are going to be in good hands. I'm sending it over to one of my buddy's places, so he's going to have a nice CNC table at his shop. Alright, let's get cutting. Alright, you guys, got most of the parts cut for this jack shaft And one thing I didn't really take into account is I got a little interference between the back mounting bolts, top and bottom, and the belt. So what I'm actually gonna do is remove this bolt here, cut a little piece away to utilize this bolt hole, and I'm gonna weld this tab on to mount it here. It'll make a little more sense once I get it modified. Alright, so here's the little jack shaft kit I cut on my CNC table. And the really cool thing about it is this setup with the changing out some sprockets, I'll get 6-to-1 gear ratio, and I can get 8-to-1 with this, and actually anywhere in between. But the really cool thing with the CNC is you can cut square holes. It's really hard to do that on a drill press. If you ever price out a square cutting drill bit, they're super costly. Alright, let's get welding this. Alright, I got the whole jack shaft assembly all welded up and put some gussets on here. The really neat thing about this is you can cut, I made a joke earlier about cutting square holes with a drill bit. You can't do that, but on this thing, you know, you can cut square holes easy with the CNC here. And it's pretty amazing. You can cut little square holes for carriage bolts if you want. It's really neat. If you can think up an idea and draw it up in CAD, you can cut it. You can make something assemble like this did, like it was a kit. If you get clever enough about your design, you can make everything nest together really well so your parts fit together. It really helps for alignment and you're not measuring as much stuff off. You mostly just make sure stuff is square and you start welding it. Down the road, I don't know, maybe I'll offer something like this. It'd be kind of cool to be able to make a few of these kits that fit on the Predator 420cc engines if you wanted a jack shaft to change your gear ratio way lower. I could probably cut out these parts and ship them in a little box flat and let someone weld them together. Who knows, maybe I'll venture down that road at some point. But to talk about gearing now, we're running stock centrifugal clutch as a 14-tooth sprocket down to a 60-tooth where the flywheel would be in the transmission. And we got a 14-tooth here. That's going to go off the secondary down just like we had the same setup before, and that's a 4.2-to-1. We got a 21-tooth sprocket and a 28-tooth. So instead of doing a 4.2-to-1, we're going to bump up to around 6-to-1, and this sprocket will provide about 8 to 8.5-to-1 gear ratio. So with that being said, we should be able to really get the final drive where we want to be. In the previous video I talked about first and second was usable, third was getting pretty tough climbing hills, and third is too fast. I want to be able to use all 5 speeds in that, and this thing isn't for going fast. As you know, it has no suspension. It's designed to be practically like a tractor. It's designed to match my tractor, my 4-wheel drive, and accompanying it, hauling dirt. It's a slow moving truck, and it's probably going to be going around my trails mostly at 10 miles an hour and slower its whole life. That's pretty much what I'm building it for. All right, let's get assembling this thing. Alright you guys, just picked up another battery. This one's going to be perfect. It's going to fit down in the frame where I really wanted to have it. I want to take this thing out for a test drive, but I'm still waiting on a seat. And I want to try out how that jack shaft works, but we want to get this battery mounted next. Funny though, in the last video I took it out for a test drive. It seemed clear that it was a test drive, but you wouldn't believe how many people commented about the battery being ratchet strapped down, that wasn't a good spot for the final location. And a motorcycle aluminum stand they thought was clearly the finished seat. You guys gotta give me a little more credit. I've been engineering and designing this thing from the ground up. I wouldn't settle for this and that and just call it good. Like, planning to finish this thing off nicely. And besides, I need this aluminum stand for my KTM anyways. Alright, let's get mounting this thing. Now, there's a proper seat. This thing just showed up. It's on some wood blocks. We're kind of mocking up the height where I want to have this thing. About a few months ago, I actually designed a suspension seat that was going to use a motorcycle shock. It was going to be a little bit of a bench seat, but it's going to be a few days worth of work making it and reupholstering it and all that stuff. And like, I got online the other day and just looked up tractor suspension seat. And this thing popped up. I ordered on Amazon for just barely over $100. And it's got a little shock absorber in here for its dampening and an adjustable spring tension here, and it slides forward and back. You just can't beat that. For my time, this is a no-brainer. So we're gonna start making up some mounts for this thing and test this thing out. Alright you guys, got all the parts cut and bent for the seat here. Nothing's welded yet. The plates are just bolted onto the frame right now. But originally I had the design with these verticals coming straight up and down. And to clear the shifter and this little mouse hole for the shifter rod to go through, I actually decided to lean this part back. I kind of like the look of it more. But I could go back to the drawing board, cut and modify these things differently to fit this design. But angle grinder is easy, so we're just going to get cutting it, modify it, and weld it together. bet these dudes would be happy if I kept this sticker on here. No way, it's coming off. I got something much better to put on here. Oh yeah, that's gonna be much better. Let's fire this thing up and take it out for a test drive. Alright, so the gearing's much better now. We'll do a little example to show you guys with that jack shaft. That 8-to-1 is, I think, ideal. It will climb my driveway in 5th, which is a fairly steep driveway, and you're moving plenty fast. I wouldn't want to go any faster on this machine. In the last video, people thought I'm only running the rear line brake, drive line brake, and I actually got the stock Subaru calipers and rotors up front too. So front's got super heavy duty car brakes, rear's got that geared down line brake on it. So we're doing good here. Next we're going to take off on here, and I'm going to show you guys an example of first gear. Alright, let's find some rocks now and see how this thing goes. Alright you guys, we had to call our test drive a little short because it started raining and hailing so bad, and as you know, this machine's all bare metal and I want to save myself a lot of cleanup work down the road. I've actually had people ask if I was actually going to paint it. Yes, I'm going to paint the whole thing. That's the final touches. Anyways, we got a lot done in this video. Actually got a shifter working on here. We got that jack shaft set up on there. We got an awesome seat. Makes the ride much more comfortable, much nicer. One other thing I want to comment we got done on here, and I didn't really make a point to mention much in the video, was I geared my hydraulic pump down when I was installing the jack shaft. It's a 2-to-1 now. Before it was just a 1-to-1. And because this orbital valve isn't very matched to that hydraulic pump, the steering was really touchy. So gearing the pump down not only makes the steering a lot more smooth and predictable, it also doesn't put as much load on the motor at idle. When you're actually running the motor and go to steer it at idle, it's not trying to bog the motor down. So that's a big improvement here. This is a little teaser, so this is probably what we're going to get going on the next video, is starting on some body work. We're going to be doing a hood and grill and putting little lights in there, LED lights up front, and hopefully getting started on the bed. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up and think about subscribing if you're not, and go back through and watch the whole build series on this. There's all kinds of great videos you can watch from the beginning of this thing. So thanks a lot guys, take care, bye.